Yeah. How is everybody? It has been a minute since the three of us have been together.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you are our actual first two-timer.
Yeah, first repeat guest.
Oh,
You two-timing son of a...
Dylan.
How's life been? How have you been since? It's been almost like, it's been over 6 months now since we had you on.
Yeah, it's been crazy to say the least, but we're still rocking.
And that's what we can hope to expect from life, I guess, at this point. So.
Yeah, it's just we're gonna all explode eventually.
Yeah, as the mile-wide F5 takes us down.
There has been way more tornado sightings in like the last 2 months.
I love it. It's amazing. It's life imitates art, as they say.
Well, yeah, I mean that's like the greatest advertisement for Twisters now, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's been a fascinating summer all around. It's been unique, to say the least. And the box office has been doing interesting things.
There's a box office?
The fact that the fact that they're coming out with this Twisters movie, I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen.
Which I had no idea existed, but I'm also have not been keeping up with the new stuff.
How have you missed this? It is the movie of the summer, my man.
I don't know. I'm a winter.
It's that Glenn Powell energy.
I'm a winter guy myself.
We're all being drawn into the magnificence of his gaze.
It's like this year's Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, because of Glenn Powell, I would assume. He's the common denominator.
Powell, yeah.
But yeah, so I figured this would be a good time, given that Twisters, the strange phenomenon of Twisters is coming out. I figured this would be a good time to discuss the original Twisters 1996, or original Twister 1996.
Yes, get it right.
Starring Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton.
I feel like it's always a good time to discuss this film, though.
I agree. It is the prime gem of the 90s, I would say, in terms of disaster films.
Absolutely, yeah.
It kind of is in a unique category of Jan de Bont. I think that this and Speed are his two big hurdles to fame. It was a little of a different career for him after that point.
Is it?
Well, what did he do after this?
Speed 2.
Yeah.
There were a lot of producer credits in there. And he rode his Amblin wave on a couple things. I think it was like Minority Report or a few other things he was producer on.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, interesting wave for
I think the last one he directed was the Tomb Raider movie.
Yeah, the Cradle of Life.
Oh, he did that one?
Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, didn't do him very many favors.
Damn.
But I dig Jan de Bont, and interestingly enough, he had some comments recently on Twisters that are interesting.
I did read that, yeah.
Like a week out from the release of the sequel Twisters, he states that I think the time to have made a continuation of the Twister universe would have been about 15 years ago. And I was like, oh, bold words on the heels of the release there.
I mean, I get where he's coming from.
Oh, yawn.
Yeah, the way he stated it was interesting. He said that would have been about the time of the beautiful marriage of practical effects and digital marriage. He said now everything is just almost 100% digital, and I kind of agree with that to an extent. I don't know. It's an interesting standpoint, especially a week before. But I don't know. What do you guys take on that?
So 15 years ago,
what was
trying to think like what would have came out at that
what
time?
was 15 years ago? What year is it?
It would have been 2009.
2009.
Right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so around the time that we had 2012, and I'm trying to think of like other
cinematic
disaster
masterpieces as the Roland Emmerich
Right.
cinematic universe.
Yeah. Well, he's the only one that like kept it going, really.
Honestly, though, yeah, he was the lone gunman out there in the Serengeti in the desert.
Any way that I can get tornadoes into my movies.
It still blows my mind that Roland Emmerich did The Patriot. Like, it's such an anomaly in his career.
He did, yeah. Wow, I forgot about that too.
Yeah, it stands out as like this just like nicely directed war piece amongst these disaster
with a great
movies.
score by John Williams too.
Yeah, like John Williams and him had never worked together since or before. Like, where did that come from?
I remember that was the first movie, Brian, that I saw at the waterfront.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very
like the
cool,
waterfront
actually.
had like just opened, and we were like, oh, let's go see a movie, and The Patriot was out, and like we got like the
interesting.
What were the the bougier seats at the time?
Yeah, the swanky leather clad.
Yeah, the faux leather.
Pre Dolby, pre IMAX. Interesting. Yeah. It was a whole other age, a different time.
So going back to what Jan de Bont was saying,
Yeah.
probably should have made a Twister sequel in 2000 then, because 2000 has some banger movies.
Yeah, honestly though. Yeah, there was like a lot of last chance type movies.
Could you imagine like a Twister sequel like squeezed in there?
I would have been interested to see where like a Jan de Bont led Twister continuation.
Like right in between The Patriot and Hollow Man.
Yeah. Hollow Man is great. I love Hollow Man. There's a steelbook out for Hollow Man. I got my finger on the button for it. I want to grab.
Do you have the steelbook for Twister?
I actually just got in recently. I got the remaster steelbook of Twister.
Wait.
And I was actually discussing with a buddy of mine because they did a big remaster for coinciding with the release of Twisters, and the going green sequence has been like very amped up in the color correction.
Or greenage.
The greenage.
Wait.
We absolutely have to talk about the greatest performance in this movie and the greatest performance of the late great Phil C. Hoffman's career.
Oh, that's
Yes.
right. I sometimes forget he's in this.
His
It's
greatest
the wonder
role.
of nature, baby.
His friggin' drink contraption with the straw in the ceiling of the bus. I saw a picture online. Somebody still has the bus in working condition. And I was like, ooh,
Oh man,
amazing. The barn burner, as they call it in the movie.
so many great lines.
Endlessly quotable. One of the only scripts that
Not one of them scientific.
not a single one of them. He's in it for the money, not the science.
Science.
Yeah, and one of my favorite parts in the story is when both teams stop like their active run to chase down a storm to fix Bill Paxton's tire. They're all going gung-ho, and then like he throws an axle, and then we all gotta stop.
Hey,
Some of the best plot lines.
Amazing.
it's that honor among meteorologists.
Yes, the extreme.
Yeah,
He's gonna rue the day he went up against the extreme.
Rue the day.
Eminent ruage. I could just watch Dusty, Phil C. Hoffman's character.
I thought that's what meteorology was like when I was a kid.
Yeah, just going out and like gunning it like in a band of random cars.
I was like, dude, that's what I want to be.
It gives it like that rock star appeal. The way, I mean, obviously,
Yeah. I remember this was like hugely popular amongst like film crew people because like that's largely what film crew stuff was like, just getting in your car, hopping into another city and like meeting up with a ragtag band of weirdos. And like I remember like this was like the rock star movie of like the late 90s for like film crew people.
Late 90s? What was this? 95, 96?
96, yeah.
96.
Now where does the late 90s begin? Or would you say this is mid 90s?
I would always say it's like latter half,
Yeah.
but that's just me. I don't know. I could be an anomaly in that department.
There were a lot of natural disaster movies too at this time. I'm trying to think if this was one of the ones that kind of started that trend.
This was on the ramp up of it for sure, because it was like this came out and then we saw the production began for Independence Day not long after this, and
Anyway, I digress. We're getting off.
Yes.
Yeah, I've
off
spun us
topic.
wildly off
Once
topic.
again.
Easily done.
But yes,
easily
back
done.
to Twister.
It's a great divorce story, like to go through. Like, what a way to initiate us into this crazy world. Our two main characters are actively engaged in a divorce when the movie
Trying to
kicks
sign
off.
the papers.
Yeah, and that's the MacGuffin for keeping Bill Paxton in the running in the early portion of the movie.
Like he could have just forged a signature.
Oh yeah, no social media yet. The internet is a stark contrast to what it is now.
Yeah, and he's my buddy who has an obsession with Jamie Gertz would always talk about the fact that her presence in this movie is unforgettable. Later, she went on to do a sitcom, and she did well for that. But it's interesting to see like the star power in this movie and how like their trajectories went after this point. Like Helen Hunt in Castaway after this, Bill Paxton, obviously an endless gem source of action.
Yep. This is before Titanic, I think.
It was before Titanic. Yeah, it was about a year before Titanic.
Yeah. Jamie Gertz.
Yeah, Jamie Gertz.
Just this movie and Lost Boys is the only ones that I remember her in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forget.
Trying to think of what other like feature films I can remember her from, because it was her sitcom as like and this are like the big things I remember her from.
Right.
Yeah, she was in Seinfeld.
That's right. She was in Seinfeld. She was the voice girl with the toilet paper.
Oh yeah.
I don't have a square to spare.
About that. Don't have a square to spare. And then she like freaks Kramer out.
Yeah, she's the call girl, or not the call girl, but the girl that he calls.
It's a form of that. Oof. But yeah, the sequence too when they're gunning it and they just show how insane this group of people are is one of my favorite pieces of cinema, especially Michael Crichton writing. For me, it hits very much on that target.
And let's talk about how the soundtrack just goes perfectly with like when they're speeding down the road or through a cornfield and Van Halen's blasting, like you can't go wrong.
I was just saying to somebody the other day, this is the only movie where every time I watch it, I actively sit through the entirety of the credits, because that Van Halen riff over top of all these time-lapse shots of
Respect the Wind
crazy
is
weather.
so good.
It just like, I feel like I am entranced watching that title sequence at the credit sequence at the end. I can't deal with it.
I have to say, like, that's one of the movies that still gives me like that childhood feeling. Like, even as I watched it it was like the other day.
Yeah.
And every time, it doesn't matter what year it is, every time I watch that movie, it just, brings me back to that whole nostalgia.
Well, it's like, too, I love the inclusion during this one sequence at night when they're at the drive-in. The scene Shining being ripped off the screen into the tornado actually scares me more than The Shining.
Well, yeah, and
makes sense.
It's right at the famous, here's Johnny sequence, too.
Yeah, it's like they time that so perfectly.
I mean, obviously that can't be an accident,
Oh no, definitely intentional. Yeah. But also like the sequence that occurs right after that is kind of the star piece of the Universal Studios ride that was taken out just a few years ago, which was one hell of an experience. I
love that ride.
I lament anybody that did not get to experience that because it was so great. I actually am a little hurt they took it.
Don't lament me without my consent. How dare you?
Don't shoot. I don't need your pity.
But no, I did not get to ride it.
That's unfortunate. There are walkthroughs online. It's not quite the same, but it's something. It was like kind of like the Back to the Future ride was. There was a lot of video playback kind of sequences of like walking through and watching. But the whole teardown thing was just nuts. It was like a stunt show without stunt people. Just watching a room get destroyed and have things thrown at you was great.
Yeah, like they created the funnel like right in front of you.
Yeah, it was nuts. I can't think of another ride experience
front row
like
for that.
Yeah. Every time it's like you got to be front row. It was like, why are you here?
Why are you here?
I'm going to sit through this ride queue, but damn straight I'm going to be sitting in the front row. The commitment of the extreme Bill Paxton to stay in, and once he realizes Dorothy is his vision for what he was hoping to create while he was with this traveling band of storm chasers. It's a weather sensory device designed at the time to shoot sensors up into a tornado and get a firm reading for the first time on like what they're actively doing on the inside. And I love Cary Elway's grin of a mustache twirling bastard type villain. He has no reason to be as skeevy as he is, but he just is.
Unrealized idea. Unrealized.
Oh my god, so amazing.
That southern accent.
Yeah, like you just want to he's like he can play like the most endearing character and then turn around and do this where you just desperately want to punch him in the face.
Yeah, it's just like the most smug bastard.
Yeah, just like you want to punch your own TV watching him. And then like Jo is so nice to him despite the fact that she equally hates him, which is like a credit to her character as well.
Well, yeah, she tried to warn him at the end and he was like, nope.
Yeah, and then like in the diner sequence, whenever she first has an interaction with him, he smugly like asks her where they're headed, and despite her misgivings, she tells him the information. She gives him like an inkling of where to go, which I always thought was like kind of interesting. It's like they all hate him, but like she's still nice enough to like throw him a bone. That's such
well, because I think for her it goes back the character, Helen Hunt's character, goes back to losing her father. So I think even though
she's more interested in actually finding a solution, like if he can be the one to get there first, she's like hedging bets.
If her having to sacrifice the fame, not that I don't know even if today if you somehow got tornado data, if it would be a top headline, but if it's not her to do it, then maybe he'll do it because they do have. In terms of the time, they're more heavily bankrolled than her team is.
Yeah, so she's kind of using them to a
So
degree.
I think that's a character moment for her in that, you know what, if
That's
it
a
has
good
to be
point.
him, that's fine, as long as it helps prevent what happened to me.
Yeah.
Honor among meteorologists.
There's an unwritten code. When the dew point is below 65, you forego your petty needs. When the dew point's above 65, then it's no, I'm sorry. When the dew point is above 65, that's when you stop.
Must be year bowl. I think we're about
Didn't they
like
used to call
3 or
you the
4
human
weeks.
barometer?
Yeah, they used to call him the human barometer. I love that line. What a gem. Oh my god. And the whole town of Wakita, like the way they staged that and doing all the destroyed homes and everything, like the planning of that down to a T, like they executed that perfectly.
Oh yeah, the sets in this, I mean, you can't argue. I would say even the twisters themselves, visually, effect-wise, this still holds up.
Yeah, all the different houses, like even the house that rolls over the street as they're trying to escape the F5 and they drive through it. I love the joke that Lego Movie made at their expense on that, where like they show there's a chase sequence in Lego Movie that they show them like bursting into a house that rolls in and they drive through all this insane stuff, and it's like the house on the inside looks crazy bigger than it does on the outside. That's kind of how it feels in Twister when you're watching it. But yeah, the use of CGI was like way ahead of its time. They used it for like kind of in the Iron Man sense of using it for like hard edge surfaces, like not as much creatures and stuff. You can actually kind of tell when they used like matted in explosions. I think there's 2 that occur in the movie where they actually matted.
Yeah, there is one that I
one
can
of them
think of.
Carrie Ellis.
It's one of the twisters when they're like stuck on the road or something, and it's like
and the transformer blows up or whatever.
Yeah, you can kind of see that it's just like an explosion that was like on another shot matted in.
I'd say the sound too in this, which
I highly agree. I actually just watched it the other day on an Atmos system, and I gotta say the storms, the recordings of the storms, I felt like I kept having to like look out the window and check, make sure it wasn't gonna rain, because I was like, wow, this like sounds.
It's definitely
insane.
a good one to test the system on.
Yeah, like just the wind and everything. Like I really felt in it. Like I was not prepared.
one thing I like that they did was, apart from, you know, again, we're talking like Hollywood disaster popcorn movie a little bit here, but every twister seems to have like its own little unique personality to it. The way it, like, if you listen to the sound, like I always can recall like different like grunts or like almost like roars. Sometimes it even sounds like one sounds almost like a
the first one sounded like a lion roar.
Yeah. And like how they move, each one kind of moves a little bit differently. Like you got the ones.
Yeah.
I think there's one that like doesn't. Is there one that like separates, or there's like 2 of them at one point, or am I?
Yeah, one of them actually splits into sisters, as they call it.
And then like you get the big.
Yeah, the ones that were over the lake or whatever, water spouts.
And that's the same point where they experience the another cow.
Julie, I gotta go. We got cows.
And I was listening to some of the bonus features too, since I got the new disc in, and I thought it was funny that Jan de Bont was talking about that. He's like, well, the cow itself is just a photograph. It's just a picture. From a visual effects, I just started laughing because I was like, just like the way he said it was so good.
But yeah, no, I that's something I think they deserve. Like even when the final F5, the final tornado comes, when it's approaching during the movie screen,
mile wide.
It's a mile wide. Plans to hit Wakita head on.
I'm not sure if you even want to know.
The siren, the noise of the warning siren. It's a little detail that I think can go overlooked, because it's something that if you're not as versed or have done it, practiced the craft enough times, you might forget. Let's give the tornadoes a little bit of a personality if we can, because this is a man versus nature story. You know, that's the main
which
antagonist
is one of my
is the
favorite
weather.
categories, honestly. Yeah, and I will to that point too. From a story standpoint, on like the tornadoes kind of having a personality. You know, there's that one line that Joe claims that the tornado, you've never seen a tornado touch down here, skip that house, and come after you. It does kind of feel like they're actively chasing down Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt in a lot of these sequences, because like you watch their trajectory, it's like they change course once they like realize the 2 of them are involved in the situation, and then like once it realizes it can't get them, it just dissipates right over top of them. And like not one, but several instances.
Huh.
Yeah, kind of.
That's a really good, really good point.
That's how, like, when I watched this as a kid, that's how I always felt about it. Like these things are coming after them. There's like a personality here to these things. Like there was like a supernatural element to it, like on a very light, almost unspoken.
Yeah,
degree.
it's like just a sprinkle. It almost kind of follows that almost slasher film sort of structure a little bit if you look at it.
Yeah, you could definitely look at it through that lens, and I kind of like that because like it takes it just that little edge above being a thriller.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't get too hokey with it. Again, they know they're dealing with natural weather phenomenon here.
Yeah, that's always first and foremost at the forefront of like what's going on. But there's like little touches that play at the sentimentality of somebody who might be looking for something a little more.
But when you think about it, they were actually getting stalked by the tornado at the end.
Yeah. That whole sequence, man, that F5 like rundown after they ditch the truck, that is like such a romp. I like the fence posts like being thrown at them and stuff, just like the many layers of like how that whole
just
sequence
getting ripped
goes
out.
down. It's wild. I don't know how you watch that sequence and not have your like adrenaline and anxiety spike.
The one barn with all the sharp objects.
I don't think so.
Who are these people? They're farmers, dude. What the?
Well, that's one of my favorite parts too of that is like they make them seem like they're these savage butchers, and then like they like at the end of the sequence they climb out. It's just like the happiest looking family. It's so great.
With all their horses.
Yeah, the horses run. Like, there's also just like as they're running up on the barn, there's just that random shot of a very like extreme close up on one of the horses from a low angle. It's just like that shot is so unnerving because like they take a beat to just show this horse for a second as like they're intensely running away from this thing.
But it doesn't take the house.
It didn't take the house.
I've always wondered, again, I know it's the climax of the film or the ending. I mean, has anyone ever done anything of like, they in real life, you'd be dead, right?
You know, if I was the thief.
You'd be dead, right? I mean...
Oh, like 1,000... Like, you think about just the debris whipping around them alone.
Yeah, like if
law of averages for how much time they spend there.
If through some miracle the belts along the pipes kept you in stasis, I feel like something would have just slashed you or hit you in the head.
Well, the thing that makes me the most is, like, their clothes don't get shredded off. If that actually happened and you did manage to stay there, like, you at least would, like, lose your socks. Like, they lose their shoes, but their socks are still on. Like, this is absurd.
I'm not complaining. I'm just kind of more like,
continuity between wet and dry.
Yeah, wild.
But I guess 30 feet.
Like you were mentioning about the sound for like the F5 too, like that. I was just like entranced watching that Atmos print of the sound for this last time that I watched it. I was the work that went into that sound design, especially for that F5 sequence, is just absurd. Like they really went for it.
Like some of the sequence, if you go back and just kind of listen, there's almost like the growls to it almost, or the way it sounds like
they definitely because Amblin was involved. I wouldn't be surprised if they tapped that Jurassic Park sound library a little bit.
So that was one thing I always enjoyed about this movie was the sound. Like even though at the time when I would watch it, and this was another one that I think was always on, in the summer or like the year after it came out, it was on like HBO or just TV like all the time.
It was one of those ones I had like a Sony tape that I taped it off of TV and had the copy of it.
Tried to sell it at the playground for $2. Never
sold them.
Never buy the tetherball. Hey, kid.
You want to buy a copy of Twister?
Bill Paxton, buddy.
It's going to be a classic.
You remember on the VHS tape, the advertisement at the beginning? And it was the Tasmanian Devil.
I vaguely remember this, yeah. I loved all that
just
stuff.
Made absolutely no sense. It was just Warner Brothers trying to tie in more Looney Tunes.
Yeah, and it was like they pushed Looney Tunes in so many strange ways. They still can't that
was
most
right
recent
after Space Jam too.
Yeah, the most recent Space Jam movie had like the same kind of like hard push energy and weird marketing areas. It's like it's interesting how that happens.
I don't remember the Tasmanian thing in the beginning. I don't think I ever watched this on VHS. Actually, I think I've watched this all.
Only off of cable.
I think this is one thing I've only ever saw on cable.
Interesting.
I still have my copy from when I was a kid.
What?
Kept that thing in a glass case.
I was gonna say
you got that crazy VHS collection. I gotta know, like, how many gems have you salvaged? Because I know you've been like transitioning some of your collection, but I if you're anything like me, which I know you are, you've kept the gold and the gems for yourself.
I think that a good base and foundation of my house is settled with VHS tapes.
I love it.
It's just spilling over at this
Literally, that is like the foundation of the, like, you're using that as brick and mortar to build it.
Yeah, it's like the old Nokia cell phone, the indestructible. They're part of the house now.
They didn't have cell phones in Twister. It was like CBs and.
Well, that's part of what I love. Was like it goes back to that like analog. It felt like a time capsule of a movie while I was watching it too. Because nowadays, I don't even know if Twisters can possibly have the same kind of feel. Because it's all going to be all kinds of tech and everything, drones. And there was something magical about the analog nature of just going out and doing it. And I think that's part of the endearing gem of the original. I don't know. I'm definitely not poo-pooing the new one. I'm interested to see what they do with it. But it's like I feel that is part of the endearing gem of the original.
Yeah, I would.
Well, I feel like 96 was like that transitional period for just like sciences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like you said, like we had the analog and it was like slowly coming over into like the whole digital thing.
Yeah. And like there's a lot more that's known now. So I'm interested to see like where the current societal understanding of hard edge like rockstar meteorology is.
Can we talk about the Pepsi cans?
Yeah, like what next level product placement? I was thinking of that before, but that's like using them for an actual plot point is genius.
He looks at like the bent wind chime and just gets the idea. Like
Classic Hollywood trope. It's like, just the flick of the switch.
Just how Dorothy can fly.
I know how to make her.
Well,
like
from a screenwriting standpoint too, it's like after they've just dealt with this low blow of like almost losing Aunt Meg, and they've dealt with this trauma and tragedy. It's like, now I've solved the problem.
Which, I'll be honest,
they've literally.
Hold on, alrighty.
We were discussing if you should put Twinkies on your pizza.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were discussing.
Clearly, you should.
Very dusty.
Well, okay. Let's say you're putting Twinkies on your pizza.
Food.
There's like endless moments from the man. Like it really is the Dusty movie.
I wish that there was like a standalone Dusty movie. Like,
thanks, Aunt Meg. Sweetheart, you're with me. And he just like holds her.
Do you see my cows outside? No. Oh.
Tasty cow, Aunt Meg. When he jumps into Carrie Elway's car and kisses his driver.
Fashionably late again, Jonas, huh?
Loser!
Move on!
Just endless goal. And the truck falling out of Helen Hunt's truck falling out of the sky. You just missed the truck. That was awesome.
Yeah, scientifically speaking, though, definitely did not follow any laws of physics whatsoever.
Not at all, and in the best ways.
Lots of vehicles falling out of the sky.
Yeah, and from a practical effects standpoint, I gotta hand it to this movie as well. Like, did you see the crazy rig that they had to simulate weather? Like, it's like a semi-truck-sized machine with like fans and loaded up debris and materials that like the crew
blowing out actual chunks of ice, like
throwing
to
tree
simulate hail.
Throwing the tree branches and that. I'm like,
like they got messed up.
I would love to like meet the minds behind that rig.
I don't know, would we?
Do you really?
They're madmen.
Lunacy.
So the question is for me then: do you think Twisters recreated some of that, or did they go full CGI here?
I do not know. I think a lot of it was CGI. Like from the trailers.
Yeah, from what it looks like, it's.
I would imagine there would have to be like a substantial like practical effects element to a lot of what's happening to the actors. Like obviously to simulate the environments and get them.
Yeah.
There's certain things that you can only do practically. So like to a degree there has to be, but.
The crew was just like throwing Glenn Powell at the rest of the actors.
Yeah, they just permanently have Glenn Powell on a wire rig. The whole time.
Just toss them. All right, here we go.
But yeah, it's just
Glenn Powell playing uncredited as the debris.
Just the debris. That's their endearing nickname for him, like the extreme.
The debris.
I love the whole debris. I love the whole story that they get into talking about Bill Paxton's character. Which I love that he's also named Bill in the movie. It's hilarious. But
he walks up to the Twister and he says, "Have a drink." He chucks the bottle into the Twister and it never hits the ground. Such a classic.
So good.
Wonderful bedtime story.
I can assure you that there was an evil Bill.
I tell my kid that every night.
It's the roadmap for how to be an awesome human being.
Tell my son, I'm like, hey, do you want to hear the story about the extreme again? No, Dad.
It's like like one of those like gold bound kids books that are like 10 pages long, and then it's like
Yeah.
like the
It's got to be a pop-up book too.
like the like Disney level like drawings of Bill Paxton outrunning a tornado.
Just their butt naked, half naked.
You have to have Aunt Meg's gravy. It's practically a food group.
That food though, every time I watch that, I'm like, oh. It looks so good.
I just need to find the grimiest, gnarliest diner right now. Like every time I see it, it's like I just need to find a diner. I need to find a diner right now.
That was the thing though about down south. Like when I lived down there for a stint, like some of the nastiest looking places you go in, and it was like, damn, like this is really good.
Yeah.
So that's one accuracy with the movie.
I stand on that. The smallest town diners are like the best food on the planet. They will have the worst but best simultaneously coffee ever, every time.
Yeah, like they will never wipe down like the countertops or anything.
No.
Or change like the cooking grease or any of that, but
that's part of the flavor.
It's part of it gives it the zing.
It's seasoned.
Very, very much so.
Salmonella seasoning.
Yeah. That's how you know it's good.
generations of season.
And if I'm not mistaken, Jan de Bont was formerly a cinematographer, right?
Yeah, he notably Die Hard.
Yeah, and he's like, as far as I've like been able to research, probably the last true success story of pulling that off, because it's not a very easy thing to do.
Cujo, he was a cinematographer for Cujo.
That's right, I'd forgotten that. Yeah, what a character! I highly encourage looking at the bonus features, especially for Twister.
What a resume!
Yeah, no small weight for sure. Like he knows.
He has terrific hair too. Have you ever seen him in an interview? He just has like this long silver mane of hair.
Looking at him at like the set photos of and like the behind the scenes of both Speed and Twisters, like the dude just has a mane. He's just rocking it.
You could tell in Speed 2, he was definitely. It's like
Speed 2 was something else.
The hair is like all over the place. He's like, I don't even know where I am right now. They put a camera on my lap and they tell me to shoot. Jason Patrick, where's Keanu Reeves?
Amazing.
Speed 2, cruise control.
Yes.
Willem Dafoe.
Like I'm not gonna lie, that was on HBO. Like
so
much back in the day, and I'll admit I watched it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, every I couldn't put it down when it was on. Like I have to just like it just.
I was like,
like
Speed 2's on again. All right, yeah.
It's not. I can't put this down until I watch that cruise ship crash into the dock. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or I just. I just was so inspired every time Willem Dafoe, I saw him put a leech on his body.
Oh, the bathtub scene, man.
Yeah.
I like how this is as much a Jan de Bont episode as it is.
Yeah, I wonder if that was like Jan's idea. They were like, this isn't in a script. He's like, I want leeches. As he whips his hair.
They're inseparable. I mean, Jan de Bont and Twister. You can't have one without the other. They're
intrinsically infused. The fact that what's his name from Cameron Fry is in both Speed and Twister is one of those casting anomalies that just like amazes me. It was like definitely a Jan de Bont pull-in.
Rabbit, right? Rabbit is good. Rabbit is
good. Rabbit is wise. Just roll the maps. That's his first line is when he's talking about his intern like folding his maps. He's like, what
if in the new one they use like all this like up to date modern technology, and then like to navigate they just use like road maps?
Yeah, like Google or Apple Maps. Like
they're just whipping out like this giant paper. Well, I think the tornado's gonna be right here.
I love the one part where they're navigating.
Paper crinkles.
He's like talking about. He's like, this road doesn't even have a name. It's like it's Bob's Road.
I mean, that is pretty impressive to do all that navigating.
Yeah, and then like keep everybody updated over the radios. Like that's insane because like they're operating in separate vehicles and stuff. Like their whole setup was like wild.
Yeah, they all were like really well synced. I will say.
Like you have to like be in each other's heads at that point to like operate like that.
I wouldn't even know. Like I haven't used an actual map in ages. for direction.
You still get it?
A few short years for me because national parks, but
I was going to say, can you still get a Rand McNally somewhere?
I don't know. Yeah,
I
really like the paper that they print them on now. Like, is so satisfying because it's like water shielded and everything, and like wax sealed.
Ooh,
it's like, I can spill coffee on this bad boy and it won't even touch it.
You should purposely spill coffee on your maps.
Like, look at this. I'm just like pouring it. Just wasted half a gallon of coffee.
It just rolls right off.
Look,
he gets spilled coffee all over it. Goes all over the person's floor.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask before when we were talking about how he gets Dorothy to fly.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. My point is, what exactly does that create? Like, what? Why the Pepsi can? Like, what does him looking at the weather vane or whatever he's looking at?
So, like, it's how the air is pushing it. And it's like the idea is like, oh, I'm going to attach like little parachutes that are durable enough to withstand like winds and not like rip them off the device is the idea.
But the Pepsi can would do it? That was always my thing. I'm like, that would do it? I mean, I'm no scientist.
Well, they're like cheap, accessible, I think is the idea.
Okay.
And it's enough that it'll like catch, like they just need it to catch into the air long enough to spiral up, and then if it gets thrown out, that's fine. But like they just need it to.
And can we also mention that they like made all of these like within like the time span?
Yeah,
of what,
that's the most
2 hours maybe.
Like how like hundreds of those damn things because they not only did one but two of those.
They just have them sitting in like the barrel, and they were just back there, like in the back of the research van.
Also, they showed the barn burner, like Dusty's bus is like driving, and like he's like they have 3 people in the back of one of the trucks doing that. Like they definitely don't have the manpower to like be driving all of these vehicles. Like who's driving the rest of the cars? Like.
Yeah, and they also lose one of the Dorothys with the Pepsi can parachutes too, don't they? One of them
like
doesn't.
When the tree.
Yeah, so they had to have 2 of them on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when they realize they have to quote unquote anchor the pack.
Quote unquote anchor the pack.
Yeah, and then they share that information with Jonas right before his untimely demise.
Yeah, what a way to go.
His
way to go under obviously matted explosion.
Well, his driver did deserve that. Later on he did. He's the asshole boss from Fight Club. Was Jonas's driver.
Also one of the police captains in Zodiac from the other.
We always go back to the Zodiac.
Yeah, Zodiac killer. But he's the Zodiac killer. In reality, the Twister is the Zodiac killer.
Is the Zodiac.
You can't explain it. You can't predict it.
Focus on what you got right in front of you, Joe. Clearly in front of his new fiance.
Well, no, she's hearing this over the walkies, right?
Which also always did kind of bother me because these walkies are like exchanging audio 2 ways, all at all times. That's not how walkies work.
I was always like, I would have been.
There's multiple scenes that hinge on that in this. Like them arguing in the beginning and when everybody can hear it. Like, wait a minute, that's not how walkies work. They're just not constantly transmitting.
Man, CB radios were so much fun.
Yeah. They still exist, right?
That's a thing, right? Those are out there.
They're out there still somewhere.
That's how we should communicate. Next time we do
honestly, it might have been better.
Podcast, we could do it over CB radio.
Yeah.
Yes. Since we are recording, Brian, just tell us. Let's just clue the listeners in. What happened?
So I use a singular recording mixer that has.
No, you're gonna include. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
You explain it. You explain it good.
You explain it good.
You're not cutting this.
We had a long gap in between where I was attempting to figure out how to fix it, but these companies don't like communicating with each other, and they try and block me from doing what I'm trying to do, and I get angry and frustrated and tired. And, podcasting isn't easy. It's not for the faint of heart. And I'm a growing, tired man who doesn't like putting up with stupid companies' bullshit. And it made me mad. So I'm sorry. And the delay. And I'm sorry to Phil. And I'm sorry to Han. But, it happens. And we're moving on with it. And we're fine. Everybody, nobody got hurt. We're fine. It's all fine.
Clearly, you did not.
Are they going to rue?
Clearly, I didn't.
Are they going to rue the day?
They're going to rue the day. These companies, man, they're going to rue the day they came up against the extreme. Imminent ruage. Man, I am working up artwork for this one. I might have to include Phil on the cover.
Oh yeah,
just have my face just put down the opacity, just emotet me like right into like the side of the Twister.
That's the one.
An F5 filter coming at you.
He's a mile wide.
the filthy F5.
The filthy F5. Oh man, that's great.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back to Twisters. All right.
Yeah.
Do we know if Twisters is in any way connected to Twister?
I've heard it said both ways, and until I see it myself, I don't know if it's a reboot or a sequel. It's kind of unclear, and I have a feeling that that's a spoiler one way or the other. So
I love the comments online, like Bill Paxton isn't in it. I'm not going to watch it.
Well, he's dead, so
exactly. Yeah.
Or is he?
And I don't want a Harold Ramis level revive him from the dead as a ghost.
Oh, that's going to happen.
a Twister ghost.
You see his face in the F5.
That's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's the extreme.
The extreme back from the dead. Yeah, they bring both him and Philip Seymour Hoffman back from the dead. Dusty just walks in with no explanation.
We're all just dust in the wind.
We're all just dusty in the wind.
The sun shining in the background as, lens flare, and he pops in the frame.
Yeah.
Dusty.
In memoriam, Dusty. Gone but not forgotten in our heart.
R.I.P. Barn burner forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the artwork, I'll be the Twister. You guys can be driving the barn burner.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was trying to figure out how to work a car in it because I wanted to put all of us in the front seat of the truck, but it didn't. It doesn't fit the dimensions. It was weird. I had to if I was gonna try it, I was I would have to shrink the truck. It just looked weird every time I tried it. So I don't know. That's to be played with. Yeah. This one is just so unique. I can't even just trying to analyze the remaster and everything. I'm I can't. This one exists in such a uniquely 90s sentiment that I don't know how you update this. It's going to be interesting to see what Twisters does with it, but
yeah.
It's definitely a disaster related film that never
lands.
It
absolutely lands. But I just wanted to go for the quote.
It would. But no, it is. It's wholly unique, and there's been a lot of imitators or duplicators, but never really quite reached the top of the funnel.
Yeah. Well, the casting in this all around, too. Somebody brought up to me that Joe's mother in the opening sequence was also in Perfect Storm. And there's little casting things always like that always kind of fascinate me. And I know a lot of that stuff comes to, obviously people working on the same films, casting directors, and actors obviously have their interests. They go after roles, all the things of that nature. But casting decisions like that never cease to kind of amaze me as they're brought in for the same types of movies, same types of roles. It's always cool to me.
Wonder if they just have that on their resume. I will only do this genre of film.
Yeah. Or somebody saw them and wanted to pull them in because they like that kind of thing or to lend authenticity to what they're trying to do, things of that nature.
Oh yeah, you were really good in the beginning of Twister here.
Yeah. And then the dad was also in the Ring, a number of other things. He was also in Speed. Now that I'm thinking about it, he was the driver of the flatbed. I guess they fell behind.
Yeah, there was a lot of recycled actors.
Yeah.
For Gone to Bond films, I noticed.
Yeah, see, I think a lot of that stuff comes down to you get that working relationship. You want to pull people in that you trust and have had the opportunity to work with.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everybody had a blast. Even though they were getting thrown at them debris and.
Admittedly, the bulk of that was Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. So it's as long as you get them on board,
right? Yeah, everybody else yeah.
You don't have to pelt the entirety of the cast. Just at least, if you can work the story around it. Oh, I just have to pummel these two, and if I can get them to put up with it for 3 months.
I would get the entire cast and crew. I'd be all you are getting the debris and the hail, and then just start pointing the ice guns.
Yeah. Well, I love too, like Phil, like
the
whenever
sound guys.
they have Dusty on the hill, like sitting with the gigantic video camera, and he's like he's covered in rain jackets, and he's just clearly getting whipped by the giant wind machine. And he's like, you can really feel it through the telephone.
See it with the telephoto lens. Yeah.
And then also they had Daniel Faraday from Lost. He was also Upham in Saving Private Ryan. Like a lot of great little names that at the time were still like growing their careers, but like you know, they went on to do like huge big stuff.
A lot of 90s staples there.
Yeah.
So this was the first soundtrack. Well, no, I take that back. The first soundtrack I ever owned on compact disc.
Hell yeah, dude.
Was Twister.
Did it have some slick Van Halen on it?
Oh, throughout, yeah, the whole thing.
As I would assume.
Oozing. Well, it began with the theme, you know, the main song or whatever, Humans Being, and then it ended with Respect the Wind. And in between you had like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Goo Goo Dolls, Katie Lang, you know, a bunch of other like 90s folk singers that people probably forgot about by now.
Yeah.
Rusted Root.
All the same, it rocked.
That is a 90s lineup, though.
Yeah, if ever I did see.
Now you're doing the twist.
The ye old twist.
Ye old. Were there tornadoes back in the medieval days?
God, I hope so. Like, I don't want to know a world where like a Roman carriage is rocketing up through a fire tornado.
There would have had to have been.
You guys know anybody at Sci-Fi Channel so we can like, you know, pitch this idea to them?
You have no idea
Roman
how many like
fire tornadoes.
I have like so many like sci-fi original spec scripts like, in my head. Needs to happen. I would jump at the chance to direct a sci-fi original.
Like it could be like an epic like Ben-Hur type of scene, and then just like a tornado descends upon the Colosseum, and they're like trying to like, you know, get away from it.
Dude, now you're talking my language. This is amazing. Did you know that in one of the most recent Sharknado films, there was a cameo by what's her name from Dance Moms? Can't remember her name.
Don't know.
Abby Lee Miller, and she like gets her head ripped off by a flyby of a shark.
That's like the best part about those movies is the low level celebrity cameos, and they just get destroyed.
Yeah, Twister, just such a classic. It's such a staple of the 90s. I can't help but go all over the place in trying to discuss it because it is such a wild, crazy movie.
Well, it's a fun movie too.
Like,
it's one of those ones that just kind of is a total fun experience movie, and it like lives in a lot of vibes and like great crazy performances, and like especially Philip Seymour Hoffman, like performance of his career in my opinion.
So here's a question. Mark Mancina did the score for this movie. He also did the score for Speed.
Oh, another example of pulling in the talent there.
Between the two, which one would you say had the better score?
Personally, I would say Speed.
Speed
sticks and lives with you.
Oh yeah. Dun 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 dun.
I sometimes hear it in my sleep still. These 30 years since Speed now?
Anytime I go up in an elevator, I'm like dun 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 dun.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Die Hard fake out in the beginning of that. So good.
But yeah, I would have to go Speed 2 as well.
I do have to agree. Yeah.
Speed 2, not Speed.
Oh no, Speed as well. But Twister has that's no knock on Twister though.
No, yeah, and I think it's just the sound design, the visuals of Twister just stand out. And also, the score itself is going up against the tastiest of Van Halen licks. Like, come on, those are going to win out.
Yeah, I mean, I know Van Halen is like no longer a thing, but I'm disappointed they couldn't get like, some other like, I don't know, rock band to do a song. I think this one's like country theme, like Morgan Waller or something.
Yeah.
It's Jelly Roll. What a strange dimension we're in, fellas.
Yeah.
We're in our lifetime, we're seeing a Twister sequel to the music of Jelly Roll.
Which I never would have thought I would see a Twister sequel.
Yeah, just in general. Yeah, I wouldn't have either. After it got past a certain point, like of like the mid to 2010s, I would have said, oh, I don't know that they were ever going to do this. And then it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But, by God, we're going to go see it anyway.
I'm in for the wild, like in the same sense of like Fast and the Furious these days, I am in for the wild ride to see what the hell they're going to concoct and come up with for this. Cause it's, I do really like the original, and like, if they're going to make something like a fun, wild, insane, crazy sequel, if I can have some fun with it, let's do it. I'm in.
Comparatively, I can see Twisters more than Gladiator 2 in terms of like why you would do it. I'm like, all right, Twisters.
Exactly, yeah.
Gladiator
it feels
2,
more
I'm
timely
like,
to do.
I don't get that one. That's just me.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat for sure. Yeah, I think, Twisters, whatever becomes of Twisters, I think that Twister will stand for a long time as a staple of wild, inexplainable action pieces, especially from Jan de Bont. Speed sits in a similar category of just wild, rompy action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll stand for some time. It may lose some luster in generations, but for our demographic, I think it's around to stay.
Yeah,
I'll be checking in on it every once in a while.
Like you said, it's a time capsule of sorts, but in a way, it's also timeless. I mean,
yeah, I feel like movies that don't like live in the tech of things age like a finer wine.
Yeah, for sure. Just watched Independence Day over the holidays as per usual, and same sentiments with that, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Disaster films are a unique genre, a unique category. And as one of the ones that kind of spurred the huge gold rush of disaster films, I think that this one has earned a solid place.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
No, absolutely. Remember the teaser trailer? Like, I remember when that came out.
Now that you mention it, because I went to the drive-in a lot around
mind
the time
blowing
that this was out, and I remember seeing, I remember they showed the sequence of the drive-in at the drive-in, and it really spooked me as a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's just the rumblings, the sounds, it's all dark, and then it cuts to that initial scene or whatever. That was like a test scene that they used to take to the production company and was like, hey, can we make this tornado movie? And whenever they saw the test footage, they were like, oh yeah, greenlit.
Yeah.
And so then they used that footage for the teaser trailer, and just as effective. I mean, it was like it was like a POV shot and a tractor rolling in front of somebody on the road, and then the tire comes flying up and smashes through the window. Yeah, that's good.
Well, the other thing I was mentioning too, the other day when I was discussing this with somebody, you got to keep in mind there's a lot of the car angles and stuff, when they're shooting out the sequences of the trucks being chased or chasing down the weather anomalies, they're showing these shots where they're rigged from the side of the truck, or they're mounted on the outside of the truck showing the interior. I'm you got to keep in mind this is in a world where you don't have GoPros, and the riggings for this stuff didn't exist in the same way.
It was insane. Yeah.
You had to drill into the hood. You had to have secondary vehicles for certain riggings. And it's it's not as easy as it is now, where you can just get suction mounts and just jam them on there and then pull them off and go. It's I have a higher level of respect for these older movies that went to these crazy degrees to get these shots that at the time was necessary to do. And
it was definitely a whole other kind of beast for sure.
Yeah,
just the rigs alone, were probably about half the weight of the car itself.
People wonder why we all go so nuts for these kind of things. It's you got to respect the determination and
respect the wind.
You got to respect the wind, man. That's that's a whole different ball game than what we got going for us now. It's more doable now, but back in the day when somebody went and did this level of craziness, it's there's a certain respect that goes along with that.
No, absolutely. And it was all real time. It was, like we were saying before, real debris, real shit getting thrown at you.
Yeah, it's nuts. And that crazy ass weathering, man. Every time I see in the BTS of that thing just rolling down the street, I'm looks like a freaking Mad Max movie. It's crazy.
I think we're going in.
all these amazing lines. What a quotable gem.
Can you imagine actually doing that in real if I end up in a situation like that, that's totally it. I'm just saying all these one-liners. That's probably how I'm going to go out. I'd be quoting Twister one-liners.
Hell yeah.
Well, I think we're going in. I actually died. My bad.
I love whenever they burst out the other end of the house, or whenever it's around when the debris is falling in the F5 sequence, and then Paxton just gives that side-eye look to Joe's character, and I'm yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah. Liability only.
Liability only.
Don't even think about it. No way.
And then just a smash cut. Like there's some like that's another like motif throughout is the principal character is going absolutely not, and then smash cut to the thing happening.
Then they're doing it.
Yeah. Food. We are absolutely not invading my aunt.
Next scene. That's where they're at.
They do it with the food. They do it with the truck.
Yeah. Like what a motif that like that's the kind of gem level storytelling of like the 90s. It's like find little things that work and repeat them in different ways and like innovative ways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like write yourself out of like these tight corners kind of writing that I like. About like, you know, we've talked about like singular locations. It's like another version of that where it's like using the maximum amount of production value out of like small things. I like that kind of stuff.
Well, it's like the whole family feel too. Like, you know, I mean, all the characters in the cast and everything. I mean, you believe that they were all, you know, like this family unit.
Oh, and from like the Crichton level writing, it's like each one of those characters had a well-defined personality and a well-executed version of that from each of the performances.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I really like that sequence where they show them all gearing up and running initially, like, after Paxton meets up with them, is because, like, you really do see each one of these characters, like, absurd. Like, the guy with the glasses, like, just going insane in the front seat, like, kills me every time.
Wait, the older dude that looks like Eric Clapton?
He gets his head diced in the night sequence.
With the hubcap.
Yeah.
He like flies at him.
He like fully thought in that moment that he got brained too. Like
he's like, "Oh my god, yeah, my head." I love how it just like grazes his forehead. Like that one of just seared like the whole half top of his head off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this is a really solid, entertaining flick. It's one that, like, you know, we've said in recent episodes, it's just like the kind of movie that just has endless rewatchability. I've probably watched it 2 or 3 times since I even picked up the remaster here just about a week ago. So it goes to show, like, this is one I think will stand up for a while because it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah,
and I love that as long as drive-ins are still a thing, which there's only like 500 left in like the entire United States now, maybe even less now.
Yeah, luckily we still have dependable.
You know, this has been another staple of, you know, the drive-in movie. I mean, I've seen so many drive-ins this past summer that, you know, hey, you know, come watch First Twister, and then you can watch the second one.
That's a smart pairing.
Yeah, this is definitely a drive-in movie type. Or this is one that I would go to a drive-in for, regardless of the fact that there is a drive-in in the movie.
Yeah, like I think that only like amps up. Like this would be one of the more like interesting classic type re-releases and a drive-in I would want to go see. For that
even though it came out in the 90s, it has that older Hollywood classics feel style going on with it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of old world techniques, that kind of thing. And it's, you know, like we said, from a time capsule standpoint, that's still just fascinating to watch how big Hollywood went out and did something.
Yeah, and upon its release, I mean, it was a major hit.
Yeah, big time. It was a box office win.
And yeah, that's the thing that I personally miss, especially with like, you know, bigger budget, you know, studio films, is that, you know, you don't take the chance anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's never going to be another one like it. They can make sequels, but Twister will always be kind of in a, you know, class of its own. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cat F6.
And a Cat 5 all its own. Love it.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Jason Patrick, where's Keanu Reeves?
Amazing.